We are a podcast for product marketers and B2B SaaS who feel misunderstood of what they do.
From someone who truly gets what you do and
basically help you feel less like a misfit, being unignorable in your role.
We got a fire episode for you all, but before we do that, we got to introduce ourselves here.
Yo, yeah, Eric Holland, the Franken manager, former Franken marketer. Can't believe we've got our 4th season wrapping up. And how about Gab? You let them know who you are for one final time this season.
Yeah, Gab Bugeaud, sales deck associate, still doing sales decks after 4 seasons, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And we can't fail to mention that Gab's is the best dressed out of us three right now.
Yeah, he still thinks he's in Greece.
Yeah, that's the thing.
As soon as he came on the call, I was like, "You're still wearing Greece outfits."
It's a lifestyle, right? It's an investment. I bought those clothes. I need to wear them as much as possible.
You're Greek now, is what you're saying.
Exactly. Yeah.
You identify as Greek. I got you.
I got it, folks. I got it.
This man unlocked the Mediterranean lifestyle, but we got another unlock for you all. It's actually the ugly truth that's been sitting beneath B2B marketing for quite some time. Competitive intel. Built-in AI does not boost win rates. And why does this matter? One time in our lives where knowledge alone is not power, gathering everything you know about competition on GPT is public info. And that's not what buying champions today need to win the deal for you and for them. And a win-win. But here's what we're going to talk about today. What do buying champions need to win the deals? Does AI play a role in that competitive intel? And if so, what's relevant for what they need versus what sales might be actually asking of you all? So let's kick off the conversation, guys. The first one on the list, AI and competitive intel today, good or bad?
Yeah, go ahead, Gab.
I wanted to know if you wanted to take this one, but I'll be brief with my answer to give you a chance to shine a little bit. But essentially, my take is you can do a part of it with AI, such as if you use deep research with specific AI tool, I think it can give you some context that you might not have done by just kind of looking around by yourself and browsing the web. But I think you cannot just take that for granted. You need to go deeper. You need to do that overall research. I like it for just mining G2 reviews or just trying to get a sense of social listening on Reddit with gummy search, for example. But you absolutely need to have more than that. You cannot just browse the web and use that as competitive intel.
Yeah. And, I think for me, what I've seen firsthand at my in-house role right now, when you just go out and ask AI to go find you intel, even when you're super specific, hey, look at these types of sites, go to Reddit, right? Dig into these types of blogs. I'm getting wrong answers, right? Even to the point of our current product launch, which we're working on. It's not going to be coming out for, a month or two. AI was telling us that it's already launched, right? And it was such an aha moment for the other people, in the org who maybe weren't as knowledgeable of what the results could be if you just want to rely on AI purely. But that was an eye opener for them, right? Because they just thought, oh yeah, if you type this in, it's going to give you the right answer. So when they tested it on themselves and saw it was wrong, it's yeah, okay. We need to actually do the real research and have our human who's here to do it, take the time they need to. Now, of course, on the other hand, it wasn't like I was not using AI in my approach, right? There's a how do you use it versus relying on it solely. But I can tell you with this specific exercise, it would have been harming the sales team, which is communicating with the buyer and the champion, to give them that wrong information.
Just to clarify, you said that you essentially ask AI to browse the market a little bit, and then you realize that it was already live. Like it
Yeah.
already existed?
Yeah, like to give like more context on the story, I was asked to basically look at a list of 50 different features across the market. 50 of those features were related to a product launch that we were going to do, and we needed to kind of prioritize which ones we would launch with versus, put out for later. And so during this process, they were like, why isn't it taking a day or two? Why is this taking so long? Type of deal. Have you used AI for this? Was the exact message I got. And I'm like, yeah, I'm using AI for this. What do you mean? And it came back to me and was like, oh, I actually typed in, is our product, do we have this feature, which we don't yet, right? We currently have not launched it, but AI says that it's already been launched and the feature's
Oh,
live
okay.
and it's already
Okay,
live.
good.
See what I
That's
mean?
good context. That's
So
good
it's like
context.
super firsthand. They're like, oh yeah, okay, we can't believe everything that we're getting from ChatGPT.
It's funny. It's very funny that executives don't have this built in. Of like AI won't fix our problem, and you should always have that in that human approach. Still, I think it can help you memorize. Like it basically memorize all of the internet, but it's up to you to essentially filter what is good, what is wrong, and how can you apply it in a way to be different compared to someone else who has the same capabilities.
Oh yeah, and I mean, to your point, like they're not looking at like, can we get accurate information? They're like, I pay you an hourly wage and you have AI available to you. Why is this taking normal amounts of time to do research as opposed to instant? And that's the trade off. And I'm sure, Zach, what's your take? I mean, you're dealing with this type of world all day, every day.
Yeah, it's for context, like I do use AI as a component within my competitive intel when I'm working with clients on sales enablement. So I'm gonna put that out there. And earlier, the question we brought up, is it good or bad? And let's take a step back because that was a misnomer of AI is a tool. It's like a hammer. Like you can like depending on your skill set, you can either be very good with a hammer, or you could be that person be yo, don't give that hammer to that guy.
Yeah, you could
We
be
can't
like
trust him.
You could be like Jack the Ripper.
Yeah, like this dude got problems. And there's been a lot of problems within competitive intel before AI came into play. And the first two that I think we're aware of is one is when it's used as gotcha moments. And what I mean by gotcha moments of like we are looking for these competitive openings and these weaknesses across our competition. And like Eric, you brought up the point earlier, it was like we wanted a wide swath, we want to cast a wide net, and we want to know every weakness, and we want to show why we're better. And why that's hard is because your competitors are doing the same thing to us. So then this ends up being this whole mudslinging event of like, well, they're bad for these reasons. They're bad for these reasons. And it just becomes a lot of noise. And the best way for us to how we're going to use AI, like in conjunction of that, like aha moments. Instead of gotcha moments, let's use aha moments. What would the world look like if you could take the information that you're gathering from AI or Google or wherever, and you think about what is the criteria that of what are how our buyers buy, what do they need to know, and just be straight up and just say, hey, if you're going this route, these are the things you might want to look at. If you're going this route, this is what you might look at. So that's the first piece. This last piece I want to share here before we dive deeper is that right now, like how we look at competitive intel today and why AI makes this problem worse is that we assess the performance of competitive intel not on like criteria, but on volume. Meaning, if I give you a 30-page competitive intel report, an executive might judge it and say, "This is great work." Has they read the 30 pages? Most likely not. But what if I was to give you a 2-page and I said, here in these 2 pages, here's a specific criteria of what are the questions that buyers are asking and how this competitive intel helps aid that. They're gonna look at that, and true story, I had a former client say like, well, like, I got more from deep research in 20 minutes than what Zach has delivered. So why should we use Zach's work versus what I've gathered in GPT? I'm gonna stop right there because I'll be happy to tell you the rest of that story, but I just want to call out those are the two problems I'm seeing right now before AI has even come into the picture.
Are they still a client? That's all everyone wants to know right now.
Right now, like that's a story from back in the day right there. But I can tell you guys the response because we all as product marketers or marketers are gonna run into this problem. You're gonna have an executive task you with a project and you're gonna deliver it, and then they're gonna come back and they're gonna be waving their GPT flag and be like, oh, look what I got on GPT. And it's a lot more than what you did. Like Eric, to your point, you said earlier, hey, why are you not using AI? Is the assumption being that AI works faster than in-house expertise? Who knows? But what happens when AI hallucinates?
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
it's a big and real problem. And I think in your case, it's like you have to understand that a lot of the time it's garbage in, garbage out.
Yes.
You cannot just trust the outputs 100% of the time. But when there's experts like you who just do that every single day, you are able to bring an output that makes a lot of sense, and not just by prompting, by understanding, by providing a foundation, by taking years of experience into actions. Um,
Yes.
which I think it's why, but it's also the fact that when I was in house as a solo marketer, I used to get this as well. Like, hey, especially from engineers or technical founders, hey, this should take 2 hours, and I'm like, dude, we're not machines. There's level of intricacies that happen. Um, but essentially, they're like, hey, I created this design, I did this, I did that. I think it's good. It can help you get some part of the way, but essentially, because almost becoming a commodity, you need to use it in the right direction, and you need to trust that the results of doing deep research and getting like a crazy paragraph of information won't do you justice compared to the 2 page that you created. It's not a game of volume, it's a game of effectiveness, essentially, at the end of the day.
Exactly. And like Gab, let's dive deeper into that point right here. Before we do, the first two problems I was calling out before AI, and this is really important for us to know, is that one, the gotcha versus the aha moment. So when we run into that of people like, hey, I want to like find how competitive traps. This is what it looks like. I want competitive traps. I want to know how we beat the competition. Then you respond like, what is the criteria we're looking at? Like, how are we evaluating that? Push it back on the stakeholders because without knowing the use case, it's really hard to know where you shine at and where you're lacking. And then the second one is kind of what earlier is that volume piece, like you were saying, Gap, is that, yeah, like, and I'm going to share you the response that I told this former client. I was like, you know what? I am so happy I said, I'm so happy you guys are using AI. Such an incredible tool that you're using. Let me tell you what's going to happen next. Your founder is going to take that 30-page report and they're going to plug it into the sales team. They're going to put it on the website. And you know what's going to happen? You're going to run into the same problem that you are in right now. So let me ask you. This information is available to the public. It's built off the back of Google. How has that information today solved your current problem? Help me answer that. Help me answer that. And the response was, it was like stuck because I think what we're talking about right now, y'all, is like none of us has given a lot of thought to AI versus in-house expertise. And Gab, Eric, you guys were talking about this right now of like if we're working in-house or as in a fractional consulting capacity, for whatever reason, executives tend to want to listen more to AI than the hard-earned expertise of a marketer or a product marketer. And it's absolutely insane because Eric, like you said before, like they're telling you go use AI. Hey, like, well, you know what? These are the nuances I'm catching. This is what I mean. I worked with a former client before where there was just this, and I get where it's coming from. There's this level of fear. There's this level of like, I want to make sure I get this done right because I don't want to lose my job.
Yep.
And so I'm gonna use AI because if if the CEO or the founder gets mad, I'll be like, hey, I used AI. And it's kind of Eric, like you brought up before. It's like for whatever reason, AI is becoming the B2B scapegoat. That even if Gab, like you said, or even if the efficacy is low, but we used AI, our job is a bit more safe for now. And but then it puts us in a catch 22 because now our expertise is being minimized when we bring in, like, you bring in a critical point of view when you say, hey, I've seen this happen before, but ChatGPT says this is the approach we should take. And that's really hard, and I don't have an answer for that, but that's what I've been seeing, like with like clients I've been working with from just other PMMs I'm talking to, is that we're not competing against each other anymore. We're competing against a nondescript tool that might hallucinate based off the information it's given. And Gab, like you said before, like garbage in, garbage out. You don't know where this garbage is coming from.
Well, it's the same thing. I mean, it's the same thing that designers say the same thing about the images that they make. And I know I've got a buddy who's an accountant and he's already, my job's going to be wiped out. The difference is this is information, research, applying that thing. And then, in my point of view, the most important part is making it important for the person who actually needs it, right? And for so freaking long, the competitive intel side of enablement has been like, it's like a side of the desk type of thing, right? And now you've got, I got a hot take, right? I've always viewed it as it's a lazy, it's viewed in such a lazy way and it's expected to act in such a lazy way in terms of just, hey, get me something. And like you said, Zach, what's the actual like context of this buyer situation right now? So I can better contextualize the information I have in my head for you. It's lazy, right? It's all lazy. And what I'm seeing is now we've taken that next step when you add AI to it, and it's just encouraging more laziness from the people who are requesting results. And then you had a great point. I never even thought about that, Zach. Like you can lean on and be like, oh yeah, I got it from AI, and like kind of blame your little brother for getting it wrong, as opposed to going the extra mile. And I think we're creating a lot of, honestly weird situations about it. And it's ultimately not going to help the buyer at the end of the day. Like I just typed it in, we got it right here in ChatGPT. I asked for a competitive asset that I can give my buyer to help them sell the deal. I want this for Figma versus Canva. It gave me 3 points for why Figma wins for product design, 3 points why Canva wins for marketing output, 3 points about team scenario and deciding in practice and what to buy. It never asked for any contextual information, right? And I'm using the O3 model, which is pretty dope, right? It's not just the free ones that you can get. And I'm genuinely shocked that's the information you're getting. And that's even asking for an asset that I can give to go sell to my boss, not just like what sales would typically ask you. And that's something for them to help sell the deal. And so I'm just seeing this ever cycling spiral of laziness and not connecting that with what the buyer is going to actually need at the end of the day.
This is making me think a little bit on like the angle of why would you use AI instead of like trusting someone with real experience and expertise. And it's, if AI does so much of a good job, why don't you just get someone right out of college with no marketing experience and just AI? That kind of narrative doesn't really, well, it might make sense for some people, but essentially it's like marketing is a game of failing and then, oh, at some point it works. It's a game of adaptability. It's a game of
We don't do marketing, just in case anyone heard that.
Yeah, I'm reading a definition out of GPT right now.
We have heard that is the game that's played. So
Yeah, this is hearsay, right? If we were on a court of law, essentially, this is about you want to fail enough that one point it works, right? If you trust something that has memorized everything on the internet, it might give you a bunch of growth hack that worked for Hotmail back in 2002, right? Which is not relevant today, which doesn't reflect the way buyers are proceeding, which doesn't reflect information that is not on the internet. Not everyone will just start writing about their job to be done, how they feel, and stuff like that. You're able to get some elements from the social aspect of it, but sometimes it's associating, such as how many rocks does the human body needs to eat, and then it tells you 8 rocks. Like it doesn't make sense. Or you're asking how many R's are in strawberry, and then it tells you that there's like not even the right number of R's. It's designed to hallucinate because it has a flow of crazy information up to you. So if you get someone who was there before AI, or someone who's able to trust that you need to try, you need to test different angles before it works, you'll get drastically better results than someone who's just doing garbage in, garbage out, or are using GPT as a way of just writing one prompt and not iterating or not providing enough context, as your example already.
And like, let's think about like our previous guests we've had. Like we had Pat Wall and Clara Smith. When back in the day when they were talking about competitive intel, it was within the context where information was not centralized. Information lived in different places. So you had CI professionals going to trade shows. They were signing up for demos under assumed aliases. Whereas today, if any person has access to ChatGPT, they can go in and find all the information related to CI. Why that's great, like Eric, to your point, it's lazy, but we as professionals in B2B love lazy. Like we want things to be easy because if the easier it is, the less time and energy I've got to put into it. But where it's a bad thing is that it's leveling the playing field and you think you have the upper hand, but when your competitors are also going to ChatGPT and they're asking about dirt on you, that information is public too. So it's like now it's just it ends up being a zero sum game. And Gab, like you mentioned a point earlier, is that where does expertise come into play? And the one lever that we can pull is use cases. And this is what becomes really hard within the marketing space when you're talking to executives because especially if they're a technical founder, they want to say we do everything all at once. If they are early stage, they're gonna be like, we are like Salesforce, we are like Gong. And I was like, that's great. And I had a previous client, I was like, but also remember they are at a different life cycle of their product than where you guys are at. Where they can lean on brand, you don't have that privilege right now. So this is why a use case is going to be helpful. And once we know that use case, then it's easier to figure out how that competitive intel will help bring that story to life. And this is where expertise is gonna beat AI because Eric, like the point you just mentioned earlier, you put in that prompt and it's like, it's not asking me questions. It's not asking me the context. Like, now imagine like what is happening behind the boardroom walls. Now you deliver work, and then your CEO comes in and says, "I ran this prompt. Look what I got," and you're like, here's where things are missing too. And then it just really falls on a lack of trust. So if that trust is not there with your leadership and your teams and expertise, which as when you're in marketing, we all know is pretty low, it doesn't AI is not making our job any easier in this specific context.
Yeah, I want to give maybe an example on how AI made my job easier, but I want to have a caveat a little bit. So, for context, I was running a messaging sprint for a client, and a way we were doing that was with like a fairly low budget of ads and wanted to run it on LinkedIn ads to see, okay, is our ICP from that specific audience that we were retargeting was essentially interested in those different angles of our messaging. Uh, and when I was back as a marketer, prior to be a product marketer, I was doing ads, and I think those ads, like those creative, those visuals, took me maybe around like 30 minutes per ads to create, something like that roughly. And then what I did is we took our messaging. I crafted a custom GPT that was essentially taking elements from that messaging and creating messaging microcopy out of it with different angles. So I give it a document, I give it a structure. I added, of course, buzzwords and superlative to not include in that. So I used that. I created a bunch of copy for their outbound team to use. But I also got three different copy for one messaging angle, and we had three messaging angles. So essentially, I created 9 different email creatives with ChatGPT with that context, and then we use those with ads. And I think today LinkedIn is adding like a tag or a C when that content has been created with AI. But essentially, what you can do is you can use those creatives, and I got 9 in 30 minutes. So I 9x the time it took me to create those ads. And then I just selected a framework in Canva and just replicated them to dodge that C if that was something that I wanted to do to make sure people were not seeing it. Um, but that's an example of structured laziness, right?
Yeah.
I don't go and just do the same stuff that is boring to me, but now I can just have the structure in mind of what exactly I want the right angle to be hit, and
Yes.
I gave it the branding palette, the color palette, and everything. I gave it essentially the type of ads I wanted to see. I gave it example for context, and I got this, and I was like really blown away. But this is coming from 8 years of experience, guys. Like
Well, that
it's
Yes.
coming
wasn't
from,
lazy. That wasn't
yeah,
lazy. You put in the time, you gave it thoughts, you thought about how you think. That's not lazy. And that's
Yes.
that's that's what I think is the big difference between you said structured laziness. That's you're just working smarter at that point.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's not the being lazy and trying to just get something. It's like I'm actually going to use a tool, like Zach said at the beginning. I'm not just like sitting around and ordering DoorDash.
You can
Yo,
create
when
an AI
AI
agent.
orders DoorDash for us, it like human civilization will come to an end.
Yeah, if
That
AI is gonna pay for that shit for me, yeah,
I'm
be
pretty sure
yeah,
it's
it's
already exists. We
that's
could
yeah.
basically
create an AI
outrageous.
agent. Yeah, we could create an
Um,
AI agent that on Fridays, every time you sigh too much, or it catches your eyes just kind of sleeping down, it automatically asks DoorDash to send you a coffee with food just to pump you up. I'm sure it exists. I'm sure it already exists. To be honest.
If it's someone's built it, but it's like Gab, like to your point, like this is a really good example where you're sharing of like here's how expertise with AI expedites like execution and shortens like implementation. Without that expertise is like what you all mentioned earlier. What's no different than hiring a college intern or a college graduate, which by the way in the US is proving to be a harder market for new graduates because executives right now are doing this. They're like, well, like, why do I need to hire like a junior employee when I can have AI do this too as well? In some instances, there might be some tasks that are so basic where it makes sense for AI. But the examples that we're bringing in right now, where it's going to require a second, third level order of thinking, that nuance expertise of what is the process we need to like go through, what are the checks that we need to evaluate, what to look out for. This is where it's really critical for AI because at the end of the day, AI is learning this information from us. And we as people are continuing to develop and uncover new sources of information to make us better at our craft. Right now, executives are using AI like look the new LBJs on a pickup game of basketball court. You got these JV superstars out here putting LeBrons on and think they're gonna go 1-on-1 with Tyrese Halliburton. That's how the executives are treating AI right
Game
now.
7 tonight.
Game 7 tonight. Yo, I might have to go watch it. Thanks for that reminder. I know it's
You better go watch Game 7.
yo yo
That doesn't happen very often.
yo sidebar. Okay, but okay but this is we're not marketers, not we ballers up in here because but executives think they're balling when they are on ChatGPT. And there's a reality here where it's AI is leveling the playing field. It's the same problems that we have had before, but it's now multiplying it. And without that context of the traps that we are falling into, it's gonna make marketing jobs harder. It's gonna create false expectations of what marketing should be delivering. Like Eric, the point you mentioned earlier, why you're not using AI? I'm like, sir, I am, or sir, madam, I am using AI. But here's the things we need to look out for. There is that nuance that I think organizations today are missing when they think of AI expertise versus like in-house or fractional expertise. That the latter should be valued more in these instances that we're talking about.
For sure.
They are bench warmer, not ballers.
AI bench warmers.
Exactly.
Can we make that into a sweater?
We still get a ring.
Yeah.
Bench warmers get rings.
Can we make that a sweater? AI bench
And
warmers.
dude, the part about the expertise that at least I personally feel is the most important, because it's my POV, is I mentioned a little earlier, but the usefulness for the champions in the deal. Because I think, again, like, my assumption is, I don't have any data to throw out there for people, so I hope no one tries to grill me. My assumption is that GPT has hundreds of thousands of inputs that say, here's how you sell. And Gab, like you said, could be from 2000, 2010, could be from 2005. But there's probably a lot more things that say, here's how you sell things, as opposed to here's how you enable your champions. Here's how you give them what they need to go push the deal forward and get buy-in from their 6 other stakeholders. And that expertise, I don't even think is built into GPT yet, because there's not enough information out there. Like, if you go look it up, Google it, or go ahead and use GPT to look it up, like, there's not value rich information of how do you help someone who's not in your organization sell the deal to people who are not in your organization. It's a unique, complex, intricate thing, and every organization I've been at has not cracked that actual thing, so I can imagine the learnings online for others are also not that high. Which, tying it back to the expertise, I think it's the one thing all of us can do in-house, or if you're doing something solopreneur on your own, that's the expertise. You can take that information, that research, and you can say, all right, now how do we make this something that's worthwhile for someone who is ultimately needing to get buy-in from their boss and their boss's boss and the CFO.
I think
the final boss.
And this is really cool. I like we're transitioning to that topic. It's like, what does a champion really need to like win the deal internally, and maybe what role does AI play into this? And I think like the first paradigm shift here is this: the old way of thinking is that I was in a previous organization where the CEO believed that to win a deal was a simple handshake with the other CEO. And why that doesn't work today is because even if like they get that product in, there's a potential churn risk. There's a churn risk of like direct team members not using the tool. There's the risk of being like, hey, like we bought this under different expectation, it's not delivering on that, the implementation. And those are the two things. And I will give you guys a real example right now. When I was at Dropbox, the organization before my time adopted Crayon. And this is our competitive intelligence tool. This is what we're gonna use the CI. And at the time we had a CI person and the CI person left, we still had this tool. All right? Someone made this decision. It was from the top down. None of us, like from the PMM team, were like really trained on it, nor saw the unique value of it. So why it made it then harder for Crayon from the customer success perspective, you now have to resell like everybody on the team so that they don't say like, hey, and we've been in those conversations before. Hey, are you guys using this tool? No. Okay, let's get rid of it. And because 2 quarters ago, the Crayon CEO shook hands with the VP of sales at Dropbox and said, this is a solution for you. But then you forgot about the wide majority of people, i.e., the direct users of this tool that will be using day in, day out. So this is why like that old way of thinking hurts like how to sell today. And if you're using AI to within that paradigm shift, it's just going to make things harder because like we said earlier, that 30-page competitive intel report, who's going to use that? Are you going to send that to the CEO or the champion and say, hey, here's a 30-page report that you could find yourself and best of luck, build your case? It's crap.
That handshake stuff feels a lot like my dad telling me, hey, just go have a good handshake and give your resume and you'll get the job. Or
Yeah,
hey, don't be afraid to
Wear a
ask.
tie.
yeah.
Well, don't be afraid to ask for 30K under the selling price for a house, even if we're in a freaking housing crisis. Like,
Yeah,
it used to work in your time, it doesn't work today. And especially, I feel like it's regressive a little bit to be, okay, well, everyone is going to be using that tool. It will be a strategic and core element of the way we're doing business. Just a good old time handshake.
yeah. It's like okay, I need open heart surgery. Hey, this surgeon's got like sued for malpractice 2 times, but he gives a really good handshake, so
Oh God, give a
I'm gonna
really good.
trust it.
You better give a really good something.
And if you look at his hand, it's like all destroyed a little bit. Doesn't look like the head of a doctor. You're like, oh, I'm
He
done.
gives a firm. I trust him with my heart. No, don't do that.
A question for you guys, because I'm sitting here and I actually feel like an idiot for not thinking about this and taking it for granted. Have y'all ever been a champion for a software purchase at like a B2B stake level?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So one of the things I find interesting is I have never once, I think it's been about 6 times, 5 or 6 times now. And not any of those times has someone on the sales end been like, hey, you told me that you have this boss and then your general org structure is like this. They're probably going to ask you these questions. And I wanted to make sure you were ready. So here are the answers. Have you guys had that experience?
I've done that from the sales end,
Right.
and it's very yeah, it's
You
very
have, you've
powerful.
actually been a salesperson and you've went and been like, hey, champion, expect
Yeah.
these questions to get raised in the deal cycle. Here's your answers. Let me know if you need anything. Let's get you through this.
Yes. Yes. Like
Did you
when
win those
so.
deals?
Oh yeah, because the reason what you're highlighting right there is it goes back to why blanket usage of AI will not influence the win rate. Because if I go to a prospect and I'm giving them like the full on, here's everything you need to know about the competitive landscape, the competitive intel doesn't work because then the buyer, i.e., the champion, has to do all the heavy lifting. They now have to take all this information you threw at them, and now they have to like parse through it, synthesize it, and then build a case. And if I'm someone who has this is my job as in-house is not buying. My job is to do other things. I'm not gonna go through that effort. But like Eric, to your point, when you distill that information, you say, "Hey, this is what you need to know. This is what you need to build together. Here's what the question is." Now, like, dude, like, you made my job so much easier. Thank you so much. Now I'm gonna go at bat for this because like at the end of the day, like you said earlier, it's lazy, but we in B2B love lazy. Like, pay me more and me work less hours. Who wants to work more hours? Come on now. So why are we using AI to make people's jobs harder by throwing them like garbage material and say, hey, recycle and sift through and let me know how it works out. That's terrible.
Exactly. And I like, that's my point is once you've learned to, hey, like take Gab's expertise, expertly coach some type of assistant. And then anytime you prompt, make sure you're doing things the right way. And then you got to use your brain and like, how do we turn this into something that our champion is going to have spear through the rest of this conversation? And instead of a 15-month deal time, we've got an 8-month deal time. Or instead of us winning 11% of our deals that we convert to opportunities, we push it to 20%. And I'll give Zach a little shameless plug. Zach helps with this. That's an expert, one of the few, I think, who are able to do both and come in and help these organizations do it. But for our in-house people too, you've got to be able to take that approach where you're able to create a process that you would actually do, or maybe work with someone internally to figure out what is that process they would work through, and then let the AI learn that process, or you're just going to get a bunch of garbage, like you said, Gab. And then use that brain, preferably Zach.
Yeah, go talk to Zach.
Go talk.
But yeah, what you said about AI, especially like the thinking part, don't let AI think for you. It's idiotic. It will take context, but it won't understand exactly everything that is unique about you, about your point of view, about all of the, I don't know, your secret sauce up to a point, but asking AI to think for you doesn't do you any favor because everyone can do it, right? Bring your context into play. Have those little like thought session when you just think about anything that is relevant, anything that you're trying to do, and the context behind it from your customers ultimately and stakeholders, because this will just make a whole lot of difference compared to, again, like those, like the worst type of competitive intel that I can think of or sales enablement is those comparison pages. And I know some of them are good, but I mean the one that we've seen over and over, that all of the other alternatives are red and doesn't work, but ours has all of the amazing green check marks. Ultimately, don't keep doing the wrong thing that we know are wrong with B2B buying, and do your work, or work with Zach.
Yeah. And again, I think you're hitting like the last point. Like there's 2 points I want to add here before I'll stop here. It's one is that I think for whatever reason we assume that buyers are not doing their own research. Like that example of the comparison page. If you're saying we are good at all these things and they suck at everything else, like our BS meter is naturally gonna be like, this I'm gonna
Automatically untrustworthy.
yeah. I'm gonna do some more. I'm gonna do some more of my
I
independent
might
research.
disqualify you.
Yeah, it's
I might disqualify you from the list.
yeah, it's like this is not my vibe. And then the second thing I think we're here, it's just like a pivot, is that the one way I'm observing how AI can be used really well without the fear of it watering down our work, running into hallucinations, giving us average output, is like, Gab, the example you brought before of like taking your expertise and then training AI on it. Don't let AI train you on how you do the work. AI, again, is a really powerful tool for research. AI is a really good tool for consolidating manual tasks. Don't get me wrong, but when we give it blanket usage without using the critical thinking of like, what is the outcome we want? What does success look like? If we're not asking those hard questions or even throwing it into a prompt to help us flesh that out, we're doing ourselves a massive disservice. We are putting ourselves out of work faster by becoming reliant on AI without the critical thinking of like, here's the things we need to look out for.
Yo, I can't believe you just walked into my next thought. It's like we're in each other's heads, Zach.
It's like AI is like connecting us together.
I hope not. But plug for the show notes and just general conversation as we wrap up. It was this week, ChatGPT may be eroding critical thinking skills, according to a new MIT study. I don't know if you guys saw that. Time Magazine
I saw that
article.
I saw that.
Long and short of it is we are not doing well the more time we spend with LLMs. And loneliness is also becoming a factor. So not as only harming our cognitive ability, but we are naturally going to become depressed because humans don't like to be lonely naturally. So yeah, that's my comments on all this. Do you guys got anything else before we wrap up?
No, yo, this was a really powerful conversation. Like just a quick recap of what we discussed. It's like I shared this with you guys. It's kind of like, what are the four traps we're seeing within like competitive intel is like that AI versus expertise in-house, speed, gotcha moments versus the aha moments, and just volume. And like I think we did a really good job of just like how to navigate that and how to position that conversation away from are you using AI today to being like what are the use cases that we are evaluating up against and how should we plug AI to help us think through this problem? What are the guardrails? And then lastly, like buying isn't done from the CEO handshakes anymore. So if you got an executive that believes that if we just deliver this to the CEO, we're gonna win this deal, I'm like, y'all smoking that AI dope and y'all need to hop off because buying's to the champions. But that's my piece. I'm done. Gab, anything you want to add to that?
No, I love the angle of the stat that you bring, Eric. Like, it's a good power. I think AI has definitely a lot of good use cases, but there's a lot of bad as anything. And I think loneliness, I think, that cognitive erosion are all aspects we need to understand. And like, I'm the first one who's jumped into GPT to just answer a couple of questions that I used to Google. But I think it's also the fact that, like, ultimately bring the context, bring the foundation, and use that power responsibly. I should say. That feels cheesy, but you get what I mean.
I'm all down for a good Spider-Man reference. All right, well, that is our last and final episode of season 4 for We're Not Marketers. We will catch you season 5.
Have a good summer, everyone.
All right, see you guys.
Thank you for listening to We're Not Marketers. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe, review our podcast, and share this episode with other PMMs. Thanks again, and see you soon.